Howdy, it's Maryam Henein, and I hope that you've been enjoying part 1 and part 2 of our 4-part interview with Zach Vorhies, Google software engineer turned whistleblower, aka someone with balls willing to stand for the truth. Join us as we continue to take a dive into the topic of health freedom within the context of big tech, Google, and what I dub techno-fascism. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
You can't break out, these individuals can't break out of their programming. And the only way that we can handle the majority of these sleepers is that we have to form a new consensus. And only by a new consensus that forms will they go along with that new consensus, whatever it may be. And if you want to study like the reason why Nazism came to power and all this other stuff, it's basically herding people into a false consensus that's manufactured, and they're just going with the herd. Yeah. And so for us, we have to be the leaders in forming this new consensus and having this voice. And as we defeat this machine, people are just going to start naturally coming over to our side when they start realizing that the science actually backs us and not the other way around. And
which is difficult if you're branded a zealot, a conspiracy theorist. You really, I think, have to, which I'm down for, having the courage to speak out and to stand for the individual, to inspire them, because again, in the realm of health and wellness, I think humans we're an amazing species. And there's also the overturn window, the concept of, we've seen this in the past 3 years, where the unacceptable becomes acceptable and we're normalizing pathology.
Right. Well, the thing is that a lot of these scientists that are putting out this industry-friendly scientism are connected through Jeffrey Epstein's blackmail ring. And so what's going to happen is that, and this is actually already happening, like MIT just lost one of their science department heads like yesterday. And what's happening is that these people that are putting out this fraudulent industry-friendly science are all connected with a massive blackmail ring. And what's happening is that these people are being removed from power because the good guys have this blackmail due to the raid that they have on Epstein's Island on February 2017, a month after Trump came to power. And so the amount of compromised individuals that have been caught up in this Epstein blackmail network, and he's just a front for the central banking powers that be. And so the thing is that these individuals that have been pushing this fraudulent science are going to be exposed as criminals. They're resigning quietly so that as part of a plea deal. But right now we're in a phase change in society, and it's going to continue to be really rough, right? Because there's two battling, collections of sense makers coming out there, one that's compromised and one that's based on real science. And so buy popcorn because it's going to be really interesting. And a lot of these really bad actors are going down, and they're going down every single day. And if you're a patriot like me that loves their country, this is such an amazing time to be alive.
To be alive. Yeah, and to bring truth to the surface. I've written a piece on the faux faith of science because people think that, well, the science itself, let's say, to show that, oh, these systemic pesticides, because Bayer and Monsanto are still saying that they're not killing bees with their systemic pesticides, even now systemic pesticides are in our blood, are not only killing bees, but other beings, birds, and humans slowly. They don't, maybe the outside world doesn't realize that, one, there's no independent science, because the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, looks to the pharmaceutical companies to do their own research. It's the fox guarding the hen house. And that on top of that, the parameters of the science are warped. They're not recreated. There is so much bias, but it's under the guise of like, this is science, when it's not. It's an agenda to propel your personal, to sell more drugs, to poison more
Yeah.
people.
I mean, I don't know of any single regulatory institution that hasn't been completely, what's called regulatory capture, where the industries capture the regulations and then invert them so that they cover up their crimes and then are used as a weapon against their competitors. And this is, I feel sorry for Trump's job because he's got to clean all this stuff up, but I can't imagine a better bully to go and, take down these bad guys. And the FDA needs to get cleaned out. They're nothing but a criminal organization.
There's a medical mafia.
The medical mafia. And I think you were telling me that you've had some of this experience yourself, where you were linking to scientific articles, and the FDA came and told you that you needed to take down the links to establish credible scientists.
Well, let me explain. In this respect, it was in regards to CBD with no THC, hemp oil. CBD has so many beautiful properties, and that the processor was acting on behalf of the FDA because the processors just want to make money, and they become even more stringent than the FDA, and then telling me I have to go on my website and I have to remove any claims, and we know we have to not say any claims, but any links. And I was linking to PubMed. I was linking to government organizations. And then I said, but these are government organizations, and I'm trying to empower people, and I'm a journalist, and there's freedom of speech. And then that day, the processor shut me down.
Yeah. I mean, they said that you had this First Amendment right to say what you want, and this is definitely within the purview of that. You're linking to government studies, and they're saying that you can't say these things. It's like, it's so ridiculous that they're not even trying to hide how their corruption anymore. It's just blatantly in. And the reason why they're doing it is because they don't want people on CBD. They want people on opioids.
They want or they want people to take their FDA fake shit CBD, which is synthetic. And now, like, for instance, on May 31st, there was a public hearing. I mean, it's all with CBD. It's all a strategy, and it's been long in the coming of what they're doing, because CBD was a Schedule 1 up there with heroin, and then conveniently was taken down when the FDA approved Epidiolex, and Epidiolex is made by GW Pharma, and it just so happens that they have an exclusive marketing agreement with Bayer, and I have an association with Bayer, and I'm just saying the facts. Like, I don't know for sure, but then it was taken off of Schedule 1, and then it conveniently falls under the purview of the FDA. And so the FDA was like, okay, well, we'll have a public hearing. And on May 31st, there were 100 speakers, 10 hours of testimony. And I was watching it live, and then I wrote a story, and then I was like, let me Google. At the time, I didn't know about these algorithmic changes. Let me see what the mainstream media is saying. And so the mainstream media is abetting, is helping propagate this fake information. And the takeaway was that there's more hype than science when it comes to CBD. That's absolute bullshit. There's tons of information. Cannabis is ancient. So this is a perfect example of how the media helps perpetuate these falsehoods, and then the public thinks, well, oh, the only safe CBD is the one made by the FDA, or yes, they turn to the opioid epidemic, which is manufactured. Stories have come out showing how these pharmaceuticals have have created this opioid epidemic.
Yeah, and now it's even going to it's the attack on CBD. It's like there's an attack now on vaping, and it's just like they're using bunk science in order to, push the narrative. And like, oh my God, like there's been 300 deaths so far from vaping. And I'm like, in America. And I'm like, that's not a lot of people dying. Like, there's more people falling off of ladders, that, than are dying. Think about how many people die of opioids every year.
Exactly.
And they're and it's just really sad how, and you see it. And the thing is that now we're all awake, and I saw this I saw this campaign on Twitter called, Tobacco Free Kids. And they're saying, we need to get rid of vaping. And all these people are responding, yo, there's no tobacco in vaping. Like, it's literally achieving the mandate of your organization name to be tobacco free, but it doesn't matter. Like, they're still going to push it. It's a machine. They're trying to make money. And they still think that they can win by just pushing the propaganda. But people are becoming aware, like after 9/11 and after the Iraq war, like people are just like, they're not going to be fooled anymore. They understand that the information is being controlled. And once you see the trick, you can't unsee it. It's like you see the trick of the magician's trick, and then you don't think that it's special anymore. And that's what's happening right now with the people and this awakening that is going on across the United States and Europe.
And what do you think, Zach, about the news that came out about the antitrust probe? I mean, it's not a lawsuit, but all the states that are now, I guess, cracking down on Google. Although I think California has the Attorney General of California has not signed on, which is a little bit ironic. So do you think? Sorry.
Understandable though, since Google generates so much money. It makes sense that California wants
Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I sent 950 pages of documents to the DOJ in I think it was July. And about the same time, they launched a wide-scale investigation to Google's monopoly practices. And what's happened since then, so first that was the DOJ, but now we've got 48 states and territories that have created their own antitrust class action lawsuit against Google. And now you've got cities like the city of New York that's now stepping in saying they're going to start their own antitrust thing, which means that now we may have federal, states, and city-states joining in this battle to pop open Google's, censorship regime and take a closer look. And, like, this is something that I could find, like all this damning information that I could find just by typing into Google's like publicly available internal documents. I can only imagine what kind of things have taken place that weren't available to the general employees of the company. I mean, I'm sitting here giddy, thinking, like, trying to figure out like what exactly they're going to find, because whenever you think something is for these like apex corporations, it's always way, way worse than what your worst case scenario could be. And with all the things that I've been uncovering with Eric Schmidt and his various shell corporations that were used to funnel money into the Clinton Foundation, and the fact that he resigned on the same day that Trump had an executive order to seize properties related to gross human violations, I'm realizing that the people that were running this company are just horrible actors. And if they're willing to flip Egypt, meddle in Ireland's elections, meddle in Brazil's elections, meddle in America's elections, like, can you imagine what an investigation by the DOJ is going to reveal? This company's going down. Like, what they've done, the way that they exist in their current form, isn't going to be allowed to continue to operate as it has in the past. And I don't really know what the solution is. I just know that when people realize how bad Google really is, a solution will just emerge organically. and and that's what's going to happen.
Do you think it's going to go beyond just fines? Because fines, I mean, pharmaceutical companies pay fines, big deal. They're still the fines compared to the billions of dollars that they make. So there are people out there who are creating alternatives to Google, which is also a solution. So do you think it will go beyond fines, that we might not have a Google in 5 years' time?
I believe that because of the AI Manhattan project that has been going on in China, that which is, to
Tell
put
us a
in
little
simple
about that.
terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Google bought out this company called DeepMind, I think like over a decade ago, and it was to basically create this like god-like AI intelligence that would be able to get all the information out there on the internet and then be able to like make sense of it, and be millions or billions of times smarter than any one person. And this AI DeepMind was moved to China. And Peter Thiel wrote an article in the New York Times asking whether Google had committed treason because they were building this godlike AI not in the United States, but in China. And at the same time, they were refusing to work with the American military on even simple projects like sharing their terrestrial imagery database with the US military under contract. Not give it to the US military, just sell the information to the military so that they could use it to protect our country. And like, I get it. If Google doesn't want to work with any military, that's okay. And I support them on that. But to selectively say we won't work with the US military, but we will create this AI weapon for the Chinese military, that is unacceptable. That's treasonous. That's working with our rival and empowering them to subvert our place in the world.
And what would be the logic behind something like that? Why would they engage in something like that? Why would they turn their back on their own government? Or
well, so Peter Thiel's hypothesis, or the questions that he was asking, was how infiltrated is Google by China? Now, I don't know if you've ever done business in China, but if you set up a business in China, 50% of it has to be owned by the Chinese. And so Peter Thiel's question is, has Google been so thoroughly infiltrated by the Chinese that they are now being forced by the government to develop this technology within in China? Like, what's going on here? And that's a valid question. Like, why is an American company developing its most significant AI system that could be used as a weapon to and building it in a rival nation? Why?
I mean, China is also, I mean, you could look at even Costa Rica and see how pervasive China is, how pervasive it is in this country, and buying factories. There's I don't think people realize how pervasive China
Nobody
is.
has any idea. And the thing is that the stats aren't being echoed by the media. They're abandoning their responsibility to the people by not telling them. I talked to a Chinese woman that's running for mayor of San Francisco. She told me that a full third of all the real estate in San Francisco is owned by the Chinese.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Believe
what?
it.
How has this fact never been told to me?
Yeah.
It's because, well, China's... Go ahead.
And how good are they at monitoring their people, with face recognition? I don't know if you saw that little clip years ago. I mean, not even years ago, about how, I mean, they have tabs on people.
Yeah,
right?
You got tabs, and they got the social credit system. So if you go on their bad list, you can't get a ticket or, on a train or an airplane.
Yeah, and I think we are seeing a little bit of that in America, slowly and surely. I wanted to talk a little bit about, your safety, or what, a little, I wanted to touch a little bit about the health check, or making, trying to knock your reputation, your credibility, your state of mind. If you can talk a little bit about that, if you're cool with that.
Yeah. So Google so when I first came out to the American public, I came out anonymously, and we released 2 pages out of the 950. The
To
page that
Project Veritas?
through Project Veritas. And Google decided that they were going to start an attack, a form of lawfare, by sending a high-priced firm after me to try to get all of my information, not just like their laptop back, and not just to know what data I had retained and who I had given it to, but also my personal computers and all my backups. They were going to rifle through that and get the information. And I realized that what they were trying to do is they were trying to engage in a cover-up, because they knew how criminal their documents were because of previous leaks and previous encounters with other employees that had leaked to, had blown the whistle privately to labor board organizations within the state and federal government. So they knew what I had, and they knew how damaging it was, and they wanted to get rid of it and delete the information. Well, I wasn't going to delete the information. This was evidence of a criminal conspiracy. And so the only thing that I could do was give it to law enforcement. So I sent it to the DOJ. I sent the laptop to the DOJ because it had evidence on it. And I also printed out 950 pages of Google's documents, and I sent that to the DOJ. And I responded back to Google, yeah, I retained your data. Yes, I gave it to people. I gave it to law enforcement, and there you go.
And you created a dead man switch.
Yeah, and I created a dead man switch because later on I got outed on Twitter by a Google employee that called out my name and told me that I was the leaker. And so I decided that in order to be safe, because I knew that they knew that I knew, I had to let them know that if they tried any funny games, that all the information was going to be released to the public. And so I called up my friend James O'Keefe at Project Veritas, and I said, hey, James, in the event of my untimely death, release all the documents to the public. And then I went to Twitter, and I said the same thing. And I said, dead man switch now activated. Well, Google decided they were going to do power projection. They were going to call a wellness check on me. Now, unfortunately for Google, they didn't realize that the address that I had given them to forward all my stuff to was a decoy address. So they sent the police to the wrong house.
So you anticipated this would happen before you thought it out that...
Not necessarily this. I just know that all warfare is based on deception. So I was engaged in a deception campaign as soon as I left Google, spoofing certain pieces of information, sending emails that contained false information in order for them not to know exactly where I was. And so they sent the police to the wrong location. And it was my friend's house. And so my friend was there, and he's like, no, Zach's not here. And the police were really trying to get to me. And so, but they couldn't get to me because I wasn't there. And so he gave me a call, and he's like, yo, man, the police really want to get their hands on you. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, well, I'm just not going to answer the door if they come to my house. 30 minutes later, they come to my house, and they knock on my door. Wow. And I'm like, I don't have to talk to the police. I know my rights. It's not going to answer the door. It's not going to answer. Well, they decided that they were going to escalate. And their excuse for escalating is that they, after they let themselves into my gate and were pounding on my door to my house, they looked down and noticed that there was a tin can full of denatured alcohol in a paper bag. And they asked themselves, well, could this be a bomb? This could be a bomb. Well, we better make sure. So, let's call in the bomb squad. So we called in a bomb squad. The SWAT team came. People with rifles got on the roof of the opposing buildings. The rifles were like long barrels, sniper rifles. They blocked off. They blocked off from 20th Avenue all the way down to 22nd Avenue on Valencia Street. They evacuated the theater right next to my house. And I didn't realize that they were escalating to this point. I did see a couple police officers like on the other side of the street. So I was just sort of laying low because I didn't want them to know that I was in the house. But I started to realize that something was wrong when I heard the helicopter circling over and over and over my house. But I was like, there's no way that they called in a helicopter simply because I refused to answer the door.
But can I ask you before you continue? So is this an example of the loyalty? Because like, let's be honest, like most of those people on the scene, did they even know what they're there for? They're just pleading, they're just showing allegiance for a call on all because of Google's directive, right?
Yeah, and there have been like a bunch of mass shootings and stuff. So, you know, because of all this like psychological trauma that's being inflicted on people, potentially by the media, there's like, well, we can't be too safe, you know, so let's call in 100 people, which is a massive waste of funds.
Yes.
You know, to do, and they, you know,
disruption.
They found out my number. The police found out my number. They called me, and I wouldn't pick up. And finally, they texted me, and I was like, look, I don't want to talk to you. Like, why are you guys out here? Like, I don't have to talk to you. It's my right not to talk to you. Like, I'm totally safe. I'm totally sane. Like, this is retaliation because they are, because I doxed them to the DOJ. And well, at the same time, my friend, who the police had come to previously, decided that he was going to check in on me because he was worried about my condition. He came to my house and saw that the streets were blocked off, and so he was like, "Oh my God!" So he called. So he went in and talked to the police, and he was able to like figure out what they were going to do. And he called me up. He's like, "Look, Zach, these police are not going to leave. They're going to stay here for as long as it takes, days even. They're going to start doing shifts until you come out of the house for a wellness check, right?" And so I was like,
how much money you're wasting for this?
How much money are they wasting? So I come down, and I was like, look, I'll talk to the police. That's fine. They can ask me questions. I just don't want for them to make up an excuse and arrest me and then get a crazy label by some crooked psychologist. Like that's what I avoid. So I said, look, I'm gonna come downstairs. I'm gonna talk to you guys through the gate. They said, okay, that's fine. We agree to that. I go downstairs, and there's a bomb robot in my gate with its arm coming through the door to get the denatured alcohol and pull it out, right? And so I call the police officer back, and I'm like, I can't meet with you. The bomb robots are in the way. And so
ridiculous.
I was like, why don't you just remove the bomb? Like, we can't remove the bomb robots now. They're still doing their job. We have to clear the area first. So they make me wait like 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, they're gone now. Let's just meet. He's like, no, actually, we can't do that. I was like, what do you mean you can't do that? Like, we can't meet you there. You have to come to us. I was like, no. That wasn't part of the agreement. We came to a meeting of the minds.
Okay.
You were going to come to the gate, and I was going to talk to you through the gate so you could see my face, because they didn't want to ask me the questions over the phone. They said they actually had to see my face in order to ask me these questions. Well, they can see my face through the gate, but now they're changing the rules right at the point that like we're supposed to meet. So I'm like, how can I trust you guys anymore? You know? And so I walked off, and then you know, they continued to talk to me, and I'm like, these people are really not going to leave. They promised me that all they were going to do was talk to me, that they were not going to arrest me. They had no intention of arresting me. I was like, that's cool. Well, there's all these people on the roofs now. Like, they've all got their cell phones out. I'm going to have my cell phone out. My friend's going to be recording this. So if they shoot me, there's going to be all this evidence. Okay. So,
it's very important. It's great that you kept your cool. I don't know that I would have kept my cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Great.
Yeah. So, I came out, you know, with my hands up, you know, in my casual business stuff, and they treated me like it could be a terrorist up until, you know, they apprehended me. And then they detained me, you know, they searched me for weapons, you know, I was clean. So, and then they brought me over with my hands behind my back, And then they asked me, like, do you intend to hurt yourself or any others? Have you contemplated violence? You know, and I give them the honest answer to all of it. And they're like, well, why would Google, like, call this wellness check on you? I was like, probably because I outed all of their information to the DOJ. And they're like, and this is the FBI I was talking to now. And so the FBI was like, do you have any evidence of this? I said, yeah, here's a picture of the letter that I gave them, right? And so I showed them my phone, and there's the letter that I took in a picture, and they're like, oh, wow, right, so you're a whistleblower. I was like, yep. I was like, okay. And so then they got really jovial with me. They were joking with me. I found out that there's only one cop show on television that's actually accurate. And the show is actually Reno 911. And it wasn't just one person that told me. As soon as he told me that, all the officers, including the FBI and the SWAT, were like, yep, yeah, that's totally, it's the most realistic show.